watching ASMR Chic. Come relax with me. Wear headphones. What's up, you guys? You are watching ASMR Chic, and I am JJ the Chic Prince. So, today we are going to be reading The Adventures of Marvin Pickering and the Miracle at Weston Falls. Written and illustrated by Carl J. Van Loo. So, in the previous video, we read chapter 4, and in chapter 4, just a quick synopsis, Marvin had run away from home, and from what we know now, his guardian angel, John, has transported Marvin to the location of Vietnam, and he is there to assist his father in some way. And also, one of Marvin's best friends actually ran away too, so the entire town right now is currently looking for Marvin and his friend. So we are going to continue that. We are on chapter 5. It is titled The Canopy. Chapter 5, The Canopy. I apologize, my neighbor's dog is barking right now. This is a daily occurrence. So I've kind of just gotten adjusted to it. Hopefully the neighbors will bring their dog inside so it won't be too loud. Or hopefully you just can't hear it. That would be awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and begin, because I'm kind of excited to see where this goes. We kind of left the last chapter kind of like at a cliffhanger, so I'm excited to see where we are. Chapter 5, The Canopy. The truck sped down the road just as fast as Jay dared to drive it. The passengers, all quiet, nervous, and weary of the long winding road, longed for a reprieve, yet knowing none would come soon. Then their worst nightmare happened. A loud explosion broke the silence of the thick night air, startling all our heroes to the unexpected reality that was taking place. McNally looked at Jay Pickering in total horror, shouting over the barrage of bomb strikes and tailed them through the rainforest. C-130 gunships. They must think we're NVAs. Jay kept his eye on the road, trying to pray at the same time, ignoring the loud explosions and flashes of bright orange and red-hot fire that turned the dark night shortly into day, broadcasting gravel and dirt into the air behind their truck. Dear God, there's enough potholes in this road to begin with. We don't need any more. McNally was looking back at Jay as if the man had completely lost his mind. Is that all you have to say about this, man? We're about to be turned into hamburger meat. So who cares about the dang road? With his eyes focused, Jay continued to keep a sharp eye on the road in spite of all the distraction. Dear Lord Jesus, if I ever needed you, it would be now. Please help us. We can't die this way, not through friendly fire. One strike after another pounded the earth, growing closer with every hit. Then the big one hit, no more than 20 yards in front of the truck, throwing flames and shrapnel-laden gravel and dirt into the air all over the truck. Jay yelled right before it hit, "Duck!" The gravel hit the windshield to an unusual extent, shattering it into a honeycomb of glass fragments. Jay did not have time to respond to the crater made by the bomb. The left front wheel dropped sharply into the hole, causing the truck to turn sharply towards the right. Before he could stop the truck from fishtailing, the wheel hit the other end of the crater, forcing the truck to leap on two wheels, sliding violently to the right. Jay couldn't control the roll of the truck. There was only one thing he could do. "Jesus!" Jay shouted as the truck rolled over onto the side. Marvin was in the back of the truck, screaming his head off, with his arms over his head. The soldiers tried hard to remain in their respective spots while the truck rolled, but the force tossed them into a jumbled heap. McNally was in complete war, holding both arms over his head while the truck rolled over. It was fortunate for him that Jay held him in his seat. He would have been thrown from the truck otherwise. The situation seemed quite grim for our heroes, but there was one thing they weren't made aware of yet until it happened. Prior to the bomb strike that caused their plight, John was sitting in the back of the truck, waiting for the proper time to act. "Yes, Lord, I'll take care of it," he said under his breath. He vanished just before the bomb hit, then reappeared at the exact same spot where the truck would roll. Right after the bomb hit, he noticed the way the truck had run into the crater. First, the front left wheel made a quick drop, and the wheel locked into the hole, causing the truck to tailspin. Thus, the back left wheel slipped into the hole, all in a second of time. "There's just no way that poor chap could maneuver his way out of this one," he said to himself. John's whole countenance changed in that split second of time. He transformed into the shape of what appeared to be a large hand, wrapping himself around the truck as it went into the roll. The combination of the rate of speed and the sudden stop in the crater made the truck launch sideways several feet into the air. John held on to the truck, prevented the roll by uprighting the vehicle, then placing it back on its wheels and onto the road as if nothing had ever happened. The truck was still moving, not quite as fast now, but upright and mobile. John got no small satisfaction from that miracle. "Yahoo! Thank you, Lord Jesus," he said as he did 4 backflips in the road behind the truck and then flew back into the truck jubilantly. The whole event had Jay quite dumbfounded. He had his eyes closed, anticipating the worst, but when he felt the truck flip halfway over, then back to the upright position again, and then miraculously landing upright on its wheels, he wasn't sure what to think. He had a death grip on the steering wheel as he continued to drive the truck to the Ho Chi Minh. Bombs continuing to drop, yet it didn't seem to matter anymore. He knew God had just saved them all. Dear God, that was... Wow, thank you, Jesus. McNally uncovered his face once he had noticed everything was safe, and then he admitted to something very strange, that something very strange had just transpired. There was no possible way, outside of a miracle, that the truck could have landed upright that way, unless it was the thought of a supernatural act worried him. McNally grabbed Jay Pickering by the shirt and began to yell at him. "Pickering, what in darnation is going on around here? What are you doing to us, man? Are you trying to kill us all off or something?" Jay could tell McNally was in shock from what had just transpired. Now he had to try to hold onto the steering wheel and push McNally back into his seat. "McNally, knock it off! Stop, man! Stop!" Then he gave him a hard shove, so hard that McNally slid across the seat, slamming into the door with a thud. "Stay put, McNally. Don't you dare move or I'll pull this truck over and give you a good thrashing." This is obviously back in the day because this kind of stuff wouldn't happen these days. Folks get in trouble for that kind of stuff now. McNally sat still, leaning against the door, now rubbing his head that was bonked from connecting with the door frame. Then he mustered enough strength to ask Jay in question, this time quite a bit more rationally. "Man, I know we were going over. We were flipping over. I know we were." Jay grinned. Jay gained some composure from the ordeal face. How in the world did you do that, Pickering? You some kind of stunt driver or something? McNally was rubbing his head and staring at Jay. Nope, it was all God, not me, man. I've only been driving for 6 years, unless you call driving in Saigon stunt driving. The men in the back of the truck were amazed by what had just happened. They were all, for the moment, a bit dumbfounded in silence. Then they all began whooping and hollering, congratulating each other with high fives and peace signs, rejoicing over surviving what could have been a rollover. Marvin just sat there in the back of the truck trying to figure out what had just happened. John, looking at everyone basking in the joy, had noticed Marvin's look of disbelief, and then he spoke up. Well, Marvin, why the long face? Are you okay? Marvin turned his head and looked at the smiling face staring back at him from the other side of the truck. How did this happen? We were flipping over. I felt it, and then... Yes, you were definitely going over. Your perception is unsurpassed, my young friend. Marvin's face went from a puzzled look to a look of acknowledgement. Oh, I know. You did it, didn't you? Well, not me entirely. I had the help of, just like we all do. Oh, you mean God. But of course, who else? They exchanged high fives and smiled and sat back rejoicing with the rest of the men. There was a great calm in the air once again. Jay looked over to his co-pilot, who was now fast asleep and his head against the door frame, awakening slightly to reposition whenever they hit a bump. It's all quiet. The truck busting must over for now. The truck lurched after hitting a bump. McNally stirred from his sleep. Is everything okay, Pickering? It's okay, McNally. Just go back to sleep. This time, keep your head off the door frame. You're gonna give yourself a headache banging it around like that. I remember that, so I was in the Army, and I remember if you weren't in a leadership position and you were just following orders, you're kind of the grunt, and you're usually worked a lot emotionally, mentally, physically. So any chance you get to fall asleep, even if it's up against the door for a few minutes, you're going to take it. McNally laid his head to the left this time and fell back to sleep. There you go, my friend. Sleep on for now. You'll need it. Jay wondered how they could sleep through times like this, with all the stress and anxiety. It truly amazed him how conditioned they had become. The sun rose on the rainforest as it had done for centuries, casting its life-giving rays on the thick, triple-layered canopy that covered the environs. The density of the tree cover was such that little light penetrated through the canopy. There were no shrubs below the tree line, only some small, low-lying plants scattered randomly throughout the forest floor. There was nowhere someone could hide on foot in this section of Laos, unless they dug a hole. Jay was tired now from many hours of driving. He was very frustrated. Most of the drive had been executed at low speeds because of the severely rutted-out road. He figured they must have traveled 90 to 100 miles or so. He pulled the truck over to the side of the road. The motion stirred McNally. What's up? It's your turn to drive. I'm pooped. Okay, Pickering, I'll take over. Jay would have continued on. He felt like he could go a few more miles, but he knew their overall safety was paramount over his ego. Jay had chosen a side road for the trip in order to avoid the shelling from U.S. gunships. He knew the incalculability of their bombs, and to perish under friendly fire was unthinkable. Jay opened the driver's side of the door and walked to the passenger side of the truck while McNally slid over the long leather bench seat and tucked to the driver's seat. Jay hopped back into the passenger seat, slid his hat over his head, lying back, trying to make himself comfortable, saying, drive careful now. We don't want any accidents." McNally smiled as he was grinding the shifter into gear. "I'm on it, bro." Marvin was wide awake now. He couldn't understand the darkness. Why is it so dark? Is it going to rain? He thought, as the truck sped along the gravel road at a fair speed. John noticed Marvin staring at the foreboding darkness that gripped the forest floor. "Ominous, isn't it?" "Yes, very much so. The tree cover is so thick, the sun is almost altogether non-existent." John was looking steadfastly out of the back of the truck, mirroring Marvin's gaze. "What are you thinking about?" Marvin intensely looked for a glimmer of light, but the canopy of trees overhead diffused it all. "Oh, I was just thinking of the woods back at home, and how much prettier it is than this." John looked towards Marvin and smiled. "Would you like to go home now?" "We can, that is if you want to." Marvin quickly looked at John with disapproval all over his face. "No way. I need to make sure my dad makes it back safely." Just want to make sure my mic is good. John turned his head and continued his gaze out the back of the truck. "Have it your way then." "Enemy truck ahead," McNally yelled, seeing imminent conflict was destined to occur. Jay quickly responded, "Give it gas, man. Punch it." He hung his head and arm out of the truck, yelling and pounding on the outside of the door, warning the men in the back of the truck to take cover. The oncoming truckload of NPAs had seen the odd sight of a U.S. soldier leaning out of the truck and knew Americans must have captured one of their vehicles somehow. They readied their rifles to fire on the oncoming truck. "McNally, duck!" Jay yelled as the two trucks converged within yards of each other. There was a long series of machine gun fire and the sound of heavy body armor being pinched by bullets. The windshield was completely shattered out this time, leaving small pieces of glass all over the floorboard and them. As the trucks passed each other, the NPAs in the back of the truck began to shoot their guns as well. Everyone but Bryant escaped injury due to the protective body armor on the truck. Unfortunately, Bryant's feet were too big. Consequently, his boots were sticking up above the tailgate, enough to receive a bullet through his left middle toe. "Ah!" Bryant screamed. Wrenching with pain, he sat up, grabbing his left foot, holding on to it, risking his life in the process. "Bryant, get down, man!" one of the other soldiers shouted as he pushed the large, spindly man down to the truck bed. "Ah, man, they got my toe! They shot my toe off, man!" John witnessed the chaos and desperation that stared towards heaven for a moment and vanished from sight. Marvin watched the whole event take place in total shock, knowing there was nothing he could do. The NPAs had turned their truck around and were accelerating excessively towards throwing dirt and gravel from behind the truck, recklessly anticipating catching up to the truck of thieving U.S. soldiers. The NVAs, now in hot pursuit of the Americans, suddenly experienced a dulling of their vision. The driver was rubbing his eyes, trying to clear his vision, but to no avail. Within a few seconds, they all experienced total darkness. In panic, the driver locked the brakes, sending the truck into a high-speed fishtail. The large truck hit a pothole, causing it to flip onto its side, sliding several yards into the shoulder of the road with a bounce. It stopped only feet from a small river that weaved its way through that part of the forest. Once the truck had rested from the tumble, the men clambered their way out of the truck in the midst of the dust cloud, still unable to see. Two of the men fell into the swallowing river, wading around, trying to grasp for plants to pull themselves back to dry ground. Terror gripped them as they screamed to each other, saying, "The gods are angered! The gods are angry with us!" The U.S. soldiers didn't exactly see what happened to the truck full of NVAs. All they was they were dramatically wrecked somehow, all but Bryant, still grimacing with the pain of his injury, cheered and yelled with joy so loud that Jay and McNally looked through the side view mirrors to see what they were celebrating about. Seeing the NVA truck on its side in the distance, they realized their victory. Yahoo! They both yelled as loud as they could, slapping each other on the back, and then shook hands in their truck, continued its road trip south down the Ho Chi Minh Highway. So it looks like John, who is the guardian angel, depicted in the middle right there. It looks like he probably blinded the NVAs in their truck, blinded them temporarily, probably not permanently, but blinded them temporarily, so that way they wouldn't be able to fire on the Americans. So that is the end of chapter 5. That was kind of a short chapter, but I mean, you already know I'm not a huge reader, so having a short chapter like that felt really good, especially after that really long chapter we had, chapter 4. But I mean, I get why it was so long. It was so long because there was a lot of details and a lot of build up to the story, and that a big chunk of the story was in chapter 4. So I get it, but I appreciate a shorter chapter like this. It makes it easier for me to read and focus. So chapter 6 looks like is going to be possibly another long one. Yeah, chapter 6 is going to be another long one like chapter 4. Yeah. It's like 20 pages. Okay, so that's going to be another long chapter, chapter 6. And chapter 6 is called A Trail of Trouble, a Mount of Victory. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of the story so far. It's kind of cool. Definitely seems to be leaning more on the like a religious side. I'm not necessarily religious. I guess not at all. I'm not really religious at all. But I do believe there is a higher power, and I do believe that there are good and bad spirits around us that can come in any shape or form. Doesn't have to necessarily be in a human form or whatnot. It could, there's certain bad vibes that come around and stuff like that you want to keep out of your life, but for the most part, we like to keep good vibes in our life. So yeah, comment down below. Let me know what your favorite part of the book is so far, up until this point. And we will do this again in the next video. We'll be reading chapter 6. So, if you're sleeping, as I always say, this is how I end every single video, but it's kind of like my thing now. I like being able to give you guys a little positivity. So, if you guys are sleeping, or you're trying to get some sleep, I hope you have sweet dreams and enjoy that amazing dream world that we all love to go to. And if you have some time throughout your day still, like I do, I hope you have a successful and amazing day today, full of gratefulness and thankfulness and positivity. And be sure to be kind to everyone you encounter, even those who are not kind to you, because here in this world we all have a purpose. Even those people that are not kind to you have a purpose, and they have a reason for being here on this earth, so be kind to them. They may just be having a bad day, who knows? And you just being nice to them, even though they are not nice to you, may actually be exactly what they need to turn their mindset around. So with that all being said, I love you guys. I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next video to read chapter 6. You've been watching ASMR Chic, and this is myself, JJ, the Chic Prince. Love you guys. Thank you for watching.